Once upon a time, in a peaceful little town surrounded by green fields and tall trees, there lived an elderly woman named Grace. Everyone in town knew Grace. She wasn't famous or wealthy, but she was deeply loved. She had this calming presence about her, a warm smile, kind eyes, and a laugh that made people feel at home. No matter what the weather was like outside or what was happening around her, Grace was always cheerful. People often wondered how she did it. Life wasn't easy in their town. Sometimes crops failed. Sometimes families struggled with money or loss. And yet, Grace always seemed to carry peace in her heart. One day, a young man named Daniel, who had just lost his job and was going through a tough breakup, decided to visit her. He had heard people say that talking to Grace always made them feel better. So, one chilly afternoon, he walked over to her little cottage at the edge of town. Grace welcomed him with a warm cup of tea and a gentle smile. "You look like you've got a storm cloud over your head," she said, chuckling softly. Daniel sighed and sat down. "I guess I do. Everything's falling apart. I lost my job, my girlfriend left me, and I feel like I have nothing to look forward to. I just don't understand how you're always so happy. Don't you ever feel sad or overwhelmed?" Grace took a slow sip of her tea and looked out the window at the falling leaves. "Oh, Daniel, I've felt sadness deeper than the ocean. I've seen days so dark I thought the sun would never shine again. But I learned something long ago that changed the way I live." Daniel leaned in, curious. "What did you learn?" Grace turned to him with a soft look in her eyes. "I learned that happiness is not something we wait for. It's something we create, moment by moment, choice by choice." She paused, then continued. "Would you like to hear a story?" Daniel nodded. Grace began. "Many years ago, I was a young woman just like your girlfriend. I was married to a kind man named Thomas. We lived a simple life. We didn't have much, but we were happy. We had 2 beautiful children, and we laughed a lot, even when times were tough. One winter, Thomas became very ill. We didn't have the money for the best doctors, and despite our prayers and efforts, he passed away. I was only 35 at the time, and suddenly, I was a widow with 2 children to raise alone." Daniel's eyes widened. "That must have been awful." "It was," Grace said quietly. "I cried every night for weeks. I didn't know how I was going to survive. There were days I wanted to give up. But then one morning I heard my little daughter singing in the kitchen. Her voice was soft and sweet, and it reminded me that life was still happening. There was still love in my home. There was still beauty in the world." She smiled gently and added, "That day I made a decision. I promised myself that I would look for one good thing in every day. Even if it was just a smile, a sunset, or the smell of fresh bread. I realized that if I waited for life to be perfect to feel happy, I might never be happy again." Daniel was silent, listening carefully. Grace continued. "Over the years I faced more challenges. I lost friends. I had health scares. But I never stopped looking for the light. That's the secret, Daniel. Not avoiding pain, but choosing not to let it consume you. Happiness isn't about having no problems. It's about finding peace even in the middle of the storm." Daniel frowned thoughtfully. "But what about when everything really feels like it's falling apart? What if I can't find anything good in the day?" Grace nodded. "Some days it's harder than others. But even then I say this to myself. This too shall pass. No feeling is final. No bad day lasts forever. Sometimes just getting out of bed is the victory. And even that is something to be proud of." She leaned forward and said, "Every morning before I do anything I say, today I will find one thing to be thankful for. And I always do. Kind word. A warm drink. The fact that I can still take a deep breath." Daniel smiled a little for the first time. "I've never thought of it that way. I've always felt like happiness depended on how my life was going." "That's what most people believe," Grace said kindly. "But life will never be perfect. If we wait for everything to be just right, we'll spend our lives chasing happiness instead of living it. The real trick is learning to carry joy with you, no matter what the world throws your way." He sat back in his chair, the weight on his shoulders feeling a little lighter. "Thank you, Grace." Think. I needed to hear that. Grace reached out and patted his hand. "Just remember, Daniel, storms come and go. But if you keep your heart open, even a cloudy sky can show you a rainbow." From that day on, Daniel began to see life differently. He still had tough days. He still faced challenges. But he made a promise to himself. Every day he would find at least one reason to smile. And he always did. Word of Grace's wisdom continued to spread. More and more people came to see her, not because she had magic answers, but because she reminded them of something simple yet powerful. Happiness is not something far away. It is within reach, if only we choose to look for it. Moral of the story: happiness isn't about what happens to us, it's about how we choose to respond. Life will bring joy and pain, but with gratitude and courage, we can find peace even in the hardest times. Choose happiness every single day.